welcome to the Science Faction Podcast, where science meets fact meets fiction.
This is Science Faction for the week of January 13th, 2025. I'm one of your hosts, Steven Dominguez, and with me today, two individuals, one in a state on fire and one in a state on ice.
I'm Ben Lawless. It's pretty fiery around here.
Devon Craft. We were gonna have like a big winter storm last week, like on Thursday and Friday, and we got some rain. We did get a little bit of snow, but it wasn't nearly as bad as we had all prepared for.
Oh, good.
That's good,
So it was
right?
kind of a non-issue, thankfully.
In your section of Texas.
Yeah, in our part of the state of Texas.
Okay, well, that's good, because I think last year, you had icicles of doom and trees and houses falling apart with ice.
Yeah, no, we had some. I was kind of worried that kind of thing was going to happen again, and we're gonna be like, oh man, it's gonna what's gonna get destroyed. But
Yeah.
We were prepared for the power to go out, but it was, I think, Wednesday we were preparing for Thursday to be really bad, and then when Thursday came, like the weather report just kept getting like better and better, and we're like, oh, this is nothing.
Oh,
So it's nice.
well, luckily there's still time.
Yeah, winter's not over.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
right
that's,
now
that's
it's
good.
sunny.
Winter is coming.
That's fine.
Oh boy. All right. Great. Well, so for those of you listeners who are kind of semi-aware of the United States and stuff, two of us are in California, and the big news story currently is the LA's on fire. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, but Ben and I are safe. We're several hours
Yeah.
away. California's very big.
We're fine.
There, I don't even see any smoke in the sky. However, I do have some family down there, and they're fine too, and they're in like LA area, and so they're in an okay spot, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I too have family down there, and so far they're doing okay. So
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, according to the internet,
as of recording,
as of this recording, next week different story.
who knows?
Devin will be frozen. We'll be burnt to death. It'll be fine. Climate change isn't real. Let's talk about stuff. Here's a good one. We're on YouTube now.
Hey,
Hi YouTube. So this was something that ex patron Joe Core suggested to us years ago, probably at this point, saying, "Hey, you guys should be on YouTube," and we're just kind of like, that seems like a lot of work. So I finally. What?
current patron Josh also suggested it. I just never brought it up to you guys.
Oh, well.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Josh.
Josh, you got to contact me. I'm the one with the loud mouth. Well, here's the deal. Over Christmas, we went to a family thing, and there were some younger folks there. And through some chit-chat, someone said, "Hey, how's the podcast going?" And I was like, "Hey, it's going great." And the younger folk went, "Oh, you got a podcast? That's great. I'll give you a subscribe." And I was like, "That's awesome. Here's our name." And they immediately went to YouTube to look for us.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Because that's where the
"What?"
internet is.
The internet lives on YouTube now. And like, in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, the other services that we used to be a part of have kind of just disintegrated. Like there was a Google podcast that's gone. Spotify is Spotify. And so it's really just if you have access to our RSS feed and you can get us, or it's like the Apple Podcast is whatever that app or service thing is. That's where we are. So anyways, I looked into it because I had created a YouTube account for us a long time ago. And after being verified, which I had to take a video of my face and send it to YouTube to verify the channel. It's very bizarre.
They still let you in?
They still, even with that, they still said, "Okay, I guess you're human." Thanks, Devin. Yeah. So after being verified, I had to be verified to have videos over 15 minutes long posted. There's a whole YouTube Studio thing now, and there's a tab that says podcasts, and you import your RSS feed, and it automatically brings in your episodes and just puts your image, just a static image on, so it's not our faces or anything. Don't worry, you don't have to be frightened. And so you can just go on YouTube and listen to us there. We'll have a link in the show notes, but it's youtube.com/@the-science-faction-podcast. There are other science faction podcasts because we're not unique, but that one is us. And we'll have the same logo and stuff that Ben thoughtfully designed for us. So
Yay. Yeah, I did put some thought into it.
Yeah, at least 20,
That's true.
20 30 seconds. No, it looks great. And then
thank you.
You're welcome. And I've been going through and I just replaced like the last 10 episodes with our like AI art for the episode, the same stuff that's on our website as an image. But when you click through, it's still just the normal logo. Anyways, you can listen to us on YouTube. That's the point. We're there now. Hooray! So yeah. Let's shift. I want to hear about Devin's news story or his real life story because I'm curious.
Yeah.
What you got, Devin?
My oldest son Nolan turned 7 on Friday, and he's recently gotten really into Super Mario Brothers because we play it on Super Nintendo. So he wanted to have a Super Mario Brothers themed birthday party. So we did that, and like everything was Super Mario. The cake, the presents we got him were like Lego Mario Brothers stuff, which was pretty cool.
Nice. With the little electronic Mario that says
yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Those are rad.
But we had the actual party at Chuck E. Cheese on Friday, which we were afraid it was going to be snowed out because his birthday a year ago, we just had it at our house. That was the plan originally, I think. But that was during like an ice storm, and so most people couldn't make it because they couldn't drive on the roads. And so we were afraid that was going to happen again this year, but luckily it didn't. So it worked out fine.
Awesome.
But we did at Chuck E. Cheese, we were just there for 2 hours. We did the presents and cake at home, so people came over to our house afterwards. But when you're there, like when you get a birthday party, they give you like a certain number of cards that have like unlimited play for 2 hours.
What happened to quarters, man? Back in my day, we had quarters at the Rat Casino Pizza Palace.
You mean you had to use your hands?
Those babies' toys.
But yeah, I mean that's about it. There wasn't nothing too out of the ordinary really happened. So,
did he enjoy his birthday? Would he have a good time?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think he liked it a lot. Yeah.
Which Mario games have you been playing?
Mostly just Super Mario World and Mario Kart on Super Nintendo.
Nice.
He's played the newer Mario Karts because when we were in Oregon, his cousin got a Switch for Christmas. So like the last day we were there, he played the Mario Kart on the Switch. And then at there's been a few arcades we've been to, but even at Chuck E. Cheese, they had the arcade version of the newest Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's a different game. That's Mario Kart Arcade. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Yeah.
Of course, Ben.
I have thoughts and feelings. Oh, I like Mario Kart a lot. I play the mobile game every day. So
I love it when cartoon characters are in go-karts. It's the best.
Yeah, I mean specifically these ones, but that's so awesome. How are you playing the Super Nintendo games? Are you playing it on a CRT with the original hardware, or are you playing it?
It's like the reissue Super Nintendo where like they have the games loaded onto it.
Yeah,
I know there's
Super
a lot
Nintendo
of different
Classic.
options. Like this one only has, I don't know, like 30 games on it, so it's like the officially licensed one. I know you can get ones now that'll have like a billion games on them.
Yeah, and those are not are not officially licensed. But yeah,
Most
that's cool.
importantly, Devin, does it have Metroid?
It does have Super Metroid, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me, Super Metroid.
Super Metroid, yeah.
Get with it, Steven.
Which I've showed my kids, and so far they don't like it. But I'm like, it's so much better than.
I mean, first you have to show them Alien, and then you show them Super Metroid.
Yeah.
Like, there's a process. there's a trauma and a trauma response, right? Like, first Alien, then Super Metroid, and that's how you deal with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll be right back. I gotta go do something.
All right, see you later.
All right.
All right, so
Something just it's a long story.
no worries.
I'll be right
No worries.
Oh, I can't wait for this story.
It's gonna be great.
Oh man. Steven,
yes.
I got sick, yo.
You got sick? No.
Yeah, I got
What
a
happened?
little and but yeah, no, like it's fine. What happened? I get sick, right? That is in our nature to get sick, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But when you get sick, you know what that means. You get to watch some movies.
Ooh.
So my son's drum teacher was like talking about like whips, you know, and like the movement of moving your hands when you're using a whip. And he's like, you know, like Indiana Jones. Have you watched Indiana Jones? And my son's like, I've watched all but one of the Indiana Jones films. and he looked, you know, and
Which two did he watch? Oh wait.
No, he's seen 4 of them, Steven.
Okay. But there's only 3 movies. That's so weird.
No.
No. Okay, jokes.
Very
Go ahead.
strange.
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. But I'll tell you, we have rectified that, and we've watched the last film that he had not seen, which is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Okay.
The 2008-ish Indiana Jones film that was meant to set up a new series of films, presumably starring that young guy as Mutt Jones, you know, as
right.
to keep it all alive without Harrison Ford, and we all know how that worked.
I mean,
but
the swinging through with the vines and the monkeys. Oof.
But
Yeah.
maybe awesome.
Maybe.
Right. Now here's the thing. I recognized that almost every film that I think is bad when I first watch it, I enjoy it more after accepting it's a bad film.
Right. Trauma response. Exactly.
Except for the Phantom Menace. There is no way I can't fall asleep. Can't not fall asleep during a pod race sequence.
Wow.
That film. I've spent so much of my life trying to love that film, and I cannot.
That is like one of the first movies I remember ever falling asleep during in the theater.
Yeah, right.
Because it was at the end, and I accidentally kicked the lightsaber at my feet, and it went off during a quiet moment.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But like, here's the thing: is that even bad films, even these bad films, including Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when you come out of the theater and you're like, that was a bad film, you're only thinking about like the parts that made it bad. When you go back and you rewatch it, you keep an eye out for the things that actually do well, or that are like, oh hey, I've never quite seen that before. Like riding a motorcycle through a library in a college campus.
Yeah.
And then also, and forgive me, I don't know if this is just my remembrances of it, but you brought up the swinging on a vine through the jungle with the monkeys.
Yeah.
That part wasn't as bad as I remember, and I suspect it's either I accept that it's terrible and we can just move on, or it's part of the revisionist cinematography that Disney Plus likes to do to all of their films.
You think they shortened the sequence?
I think that the CGI looked a lot better throughout that entire sequence.
Interesting.
It felt not as terrible as I remember.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And also, I'm watching it with an 11-year-old who likes monkeys, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
like,
so then that was the best part of the movie for him.
Yeah, it was. That's for sure.
Can we watch that monkey movie again? What? Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Ah, yes, the monkey
Right.
movie.
Yeah, the monkey movie. So anyhow, yeah, now Flint has watched all of the official films. Now we get to go to Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. We get to play the new video game that's come out. How's that going, Steven?
Oh, it's really good.
Okay.
It man, I've got a lot to say about it. Let me let me summarize. It feels like Indiana Jones.
Okay.
It matches the vibe. It like the pacing, the storytelling, the music, the acting. It feels like Indiana Jones. If you could find that game on YouTube as someone who edited it into a movie, watch it. If you can't play it,
Okay.
it just the amount of love and care put into that video game to make it feel like a movie from 1985 is glorious. It's really good. And I've only gotten to the second section. The game opens with a dream sequence that is Raiders of the Lost Ark, the opening sequence of that, and then you go to the Vatican and you do adventuring in the Vatican, and then you move on to Giza in Egypt. And I just got to the Giza. I've been doing adventuring there for a few hours. And oh man, punching Nazis, it's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. I love punching Nazis. It feels like even the sound effects of his punches are like straight out of the 80s, like like the over the top like punch noises. They're there. It feels so good. Anyways, yeah, that's real good. That is real good.
Right on.
Anyways,
right on.
yes.
Cool. Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. And occasionally I run into things on YouTube that are fascinating to me. Like, I came across this 10-minute talk about Dark City, which if somebody's going to talk about Dark City on YouTube, I'm going to watch it. Like, whatever.
It's a foregone conclusion.
One of my favorite films ever. But like this video was about, and forgive me, I don't have a link to it right now, but it was about why did it fail commercially?
Mm-hmm.
And what did Alex Proyas do that was so amazing about it? Well, he built an entire couple city blocks inside of a set, then drove cars through it, and created a bunch of architectural stuff there that ended up being sets that were reused in The Matrix a year later.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean that's you say wow, but sets are often reused. Like that's the whole thing that's what a studio is. It's a series of sets that can be redressed and reused.
I think it's funny because a lot of people, myself included, really think that a large portion of why the Dark City wasn't as big was because it was overshadowed by the sheer juggernaut that was The Matrix.
Yeah.
What
is The Matrix?
You'll have to see for yourself, Stephen. Yeah, and so to see that actually The Matrix, due to the timeline and due to production schedules and everything, it owes a debt of gratitude to Dark City as well. I mean, the Dark City came out a year earlier, but it was part of a bunch of films that had a very similar theme. Existenz, 13th Floor, Matrix, Dark City, all of at the same time. That was just hey, how cool. If you get an opportunity, see Dark City. I know I've probably mentioned that a lot the last couple of months. It's been on my mind.
Yes, that's fine, man. When was the last time you watched Dark City?
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I finally watched the commentary on the director's cut.
Oh, finally.
Yeah, the one with the director, not the one with Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert did a commentary for Dark
Oh,
City.
yes. So Roger Ebert.
Oh no! Ben
Dark
just got
City.
excited.
I woke up. Steven asked a
He said he
question
liked
about
it or
this.
didn't like it.
So he loved the film so much that when it came time to do the DVD, he recorded an entire commentary about the film and about how parts of the cinematography that he noticed that were portions of it that he used as talking points for his filmmaking classes that he was teaching at UC. One of the colleges that he was teaching at, that Roger Ebert was teaching at, and then when the director's cut came up, he recorded a new commentary for the director's cut version.
Wow.
Yeah, Roger Ebert loves Dark City, or loved Dark City. May he rest in peace.
I was going to say rest in peace.
Yeah. At least Roger Ebert loved Dark City.
Him and you.
Yeah.
Peas in a pod.
Man.
Speaking of fancy movie stuff, I found I do indeed. I talked about it last week. I do indeed have the 5-disc complete collector's edition of Blade Runner.
Dude.
I've started rewatching the final cut after reading that the book Future Noir, which I again talked about last week. And I noticed that in this series I do have the 3-hour roughly 3-hour Dangerous Days making of Blade Runner that I've never watched. So
whoa.
Yeah, I'm in for a treat one of these days when I have 3 extra hours.
Let's go.
And the work print too, which is cool because that's like a big piece of cinema history as well. So yeah, that'll be fun. That's fun. Awesome. It's not too hard to get your computer to run Blu-rays nowadays. Last time I tried it was difficult, but this time around, all I had to do was find some DLLs and put them in the right files, and then my VLC media player could play it. That's a whole thing.
My
man. Let's. I'm gonna skip the RPG thing. Okay, let's get to future or now. Ben or me?
Oh gosh.
Oh geez.
I don't know. You know what? Mine I can riff off of yours. So if you want to go first,
okay.
Go for it.
All right, fair enough. All right, everyone. I'm calling this "Don't Luigi the Wrong People." Welcome to my TED Talk about State Farm and the LA fires.
Oh.
All right. So as we all know, Luigi Mangione has been accused of murder, I think, for the United Healthcare CEO. That's an ongoing thing. I got to make sure I get my lawyer talk right here. What's not accused of? What's the term? He's
charged.
Accused, no, yeah. Is it not charged? He allegedly, that's the word I was looking for. Sorry, allegedly unalived this guy because of the way that the company was being run. Right, deny, defend, depose. Right, the healthcare companies are not are giving medical advice and denying money, whereas the doctors are the ones that should be saying, yeah, you need this treatment. Instead, we have health insurance companies saying, you know what, you don't need this treatment unless you go through a lengthy process of saying, yes, I do. And that's no good. It's more complicated than that, I understand. But that's just a primer. Because these giant fires in LA, people want to point the fingers, right? Some people are pointing the fingers at the city of LA, saying that the massive budget cuts to the fire department, that's an issue. Another one that they're pointing the fingers at is the State Farm insurance company, which
apparently someone else they're pointing the finger at is P. Diddy. I've heard recently.
It's his fault with the LA fires?
What? Jen told me about this. It's a conspiracy theory because, P. Diddy's been in a lot of trouble lately, but they've been saying that if you go back and look at things, like people who could have blown the whistle on him have mysteriously gone missing or dead
Oh,
or
yeah, he's
whatever.
been, yeah.
And so
Okay.
they're saying like, oh, and his house was going to be investigated or searched in the next like week or so, and then it got burned down. So
Blame P.
Oh,
Diddy.
geez.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that's a whole nother thing. So
I don't think that's the case. I just thought it
no,
was kind
no,
of
probably
funny.
no. So here's the thing. People are upset with insurance companies, rightly so. The health insurance companies, at least. Like I'm behind that. Hey, this is a broken system and it's corrupt and it's meant to siphon the money away from sick people. However, the State Farm thing is a little bit different, and I know about this because of my wife. So she works in the insurance company, or in the insurance business. She doesn't work for State Farm. Insurance is a complicated thing. But here's the deal with State Farm. They've said years ago, they've said to the state of California, hey, we need to raise our rates by a lot because everything's getting more expensive, the cost of materials. If something bad happens, the cost of replacing this house is going to be more than it was several years ago. Like, for example, the house I'm living in right now is supposedly worth about twice what we bought it for 10 years ago, right? Has our insurance doubled? I don't think so. So think about that within the context of LA and giant mansions and like P. Diddy's house and everything that's just full of combustible lube, apparently. So they've said, hey, our insurance rates need to go up. But the California, I don't know, remember what his name is. There's a title for it. There's a governmental office that deals with insurance rates, and they're like, no, the people don't want their rates to go up. We're not going to let you have your rates go up. And they said, State Farm comes back and says, well, okay, if we're not allowed to raise our rates, we need to leave. We have to leave California then. Like, we can't afford this. We have to go. And so they've started the process of doing that, of no longer offering service in California. Years ago, they've started this. This has been a huge problem. This has been like 8-10 years in the making. And so they have been contacting people saying, hey, we're going to stop your coverage. They sent out letters. They've communicated months in advance. I think the minimum is like weeks, but they've been doing it like months, right? They've been nice about this. So when people are upset about and saying, hey, State Farm just canceled my coverage, and then this fire happens, like, isn't that a coincidence? They're bad. Not necessarily. They've been saying for years now that we can't afford to insure these people in California. Right now, they have around $3 billion in their coffers, right? That's money that's set aside for emergencies, right? For when they need to pay out for insurance. Something bad happens, your house burns down, one house, right? And like, all right, well, that was an accident. So here is your, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. Like, here you go. That's what you've been paying for all these years. Here's your money. The estimate right now that State Farm will have to pay for these LA fires is around $4 billion. They don't have that much money because they were not allowed to raise their insurance rates, because that would make people upset to live in California and have to pay so much money. Well, now what, right? So because the state didn't let them raise their rates, now they can't afford to pay out. And so now people who have been paying them all these years, doing what they're supposed to be doing, they may not get enough money back to rebuild and get what they paid for. And the company is going to go insolvent. That's just what's going to happen. So who's to blame? that's a complicated question, right? Because
I mean, we're in a system that prioritizes short-term wealth over long-term stability and livelihoods of people, right?
yeah,
There's
so
an entire like these are the realities based on larger interacting systems that all have created this perfect storm of terror and awfulness.
yeah, it's not a good place to be in. This is not a short talk. This is a long talk. If you want to know more about this kind of stuff, please look into it, do your research, whatever. But because most 95% of the systems out there that have been in place for years are now completely broken, and you can't just fix one, because then the other systems will come in and take advantage of it and break it all over again. And you can't wipe out all the systems and start from scratch, because that's just not how things work.
Yeah. I mean, I like looking into the future. I know that there is going to be a lot of intent on rebuilding as quickly as possible and as financially solvent as possible. And I think that some of the people that are going to get the real brunt of this are the renters in the area. They're going to find themselves like wanting to come back and live in the places where they have been living so far, but perhaps they're going to be returning to areas that are going to undergo immense levels of gentrification.
Yeah, that could happen as well.
And that's really challenging to me, because like, yeah, landowners should have the ability to improve their land and to make all this stuff work better. But people got to live somewhere.
California is becoming, not becoming. I don't know enough about it to have an intelligent conversation, but it feels like California is becoming too unaffordable.
This may be one of the reasons why 1/3 of this podcast isn't in California anymore.
That may just be, and it's not stopping. This is again like this system of greed and corporate profits, and it's all tied in together.
Well, you're talking about greed and corporate profits. What was the incentive, or what was the reasoning behind the policy of not allowing them to raise their rates?
The guy in charge wants to stay in charge. So this
did they say they weren't going to raise their rates, or did you said that California passed legislation not allowing them to raise their rates?
So there is I should get Martine on this podcast, but she's working. There is a guy. There's like one person who's in charge of this, of like regulating these insurance rates. And this person recently came out and said like, hey, I've been keeping everything affordable for everyone. So I get to stay in power. It's like a power play thing. This person wants to.
I know, but I don't actually know a lot about it. I do remember when they said they were pulling out California a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't know about, like you said, they didn't raise their rates, and I'm just wondering why. Is it an internal decision, or was it a legal decision mandated by the state?
It was. And
so when you say this guy was in charge, are you talking about the guy internally at State Farm in charge, or somebody in the California government?
California government. I'm talking about California government. So it's an office. I can't remember the name of it. It's like the insurance regulation something. But it's a person who's trying to stay in office because they're voted in, voted out, or however it works. And they look to their constituents who say, we want lower insurance rates. And he says, okay. So now I'm not, when the insurance companies come to me and say, hey, we need to raise our rates, I'm allowed to say, no, you cannot. It's probably more complicated than that. But it's essentially the people.
Well, I'm just saying you're blaming greed, and I agree. Greed is probably the cause of most problems in the world. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the policy behind this was, hey, people can't afford higher insurance rates. Well, they should increase their insurance rates to avoid the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the people behind it wouldn't cite, I mean, whether they're lying or whether they're being legitimate and being maybe, this is the problem with some liberal policies where we're not looking at reality, we're looking at what's best right now for people who maybe can't afford things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure that the policy was intended from a standpoint of I want to stay in power. It was probably intended of a standpoint of, no, seriously, people can't afford insurance. We can't keep charging people this insurance, which is nearsighted, but
I mean, it's
we
probably
don't know the actual cause behind it.
It's a little column A, it's a little column B, because you keep raising these rates, people won't be able to live here, and then people will have to leave. But that also goes to like the economy, and like the cost of living is just going up and up and up. And as you know, Devin, it becomes unaffordable at a certain point. And
because what's going to happen now is the state's going to have to make up that difference.
Right.
And then if the state can't afford it, the state of California, they're going to ask the federal government for it. And then that shifts the burden nationally. And of course, we're going to have an administration that's not going to be willing to give California anything, which is going to make the problem worse for California, because then they aren't going to be able to rely on the federal government. But it's like you were saying, the system is messed up, but it's just saying it's only greed. I mean, there are just many different
hold on.
factors. I'm not saying that. I mean, if you were to talk to someone who's super conservative, they would say that this is the problem of a bleeding heart liberal system, which is also be way too much of an oversimplification.
When I specifically said greed, I was responding to when Ben was saying when these places are going to be rebuilt, they're going to be rebuilt for a richer clientele, and that's the
gentrification issue.
Yeah, that's the greed I was pointing to. Like, if you're going to rebuild your apartments, well, now they're the fanciest apartments ever, and the people that used to live in that spot can no longer afford it. That's the greed I was pointing to.
Because if you're going to rebuild it, you should rebuild it to make it to the best it can be for the like, let's take the time and improve it so that we get a higher, we enrich the land, make it as good as possible. But the thing is that, like, that is short-sighted depending on who it is you're serving.
Sort of what it comes down to is that if you try to make, I mean, you can say society in general or a state or a region, if you try to make it as nice and pretty and utopian as possible, it's almost inevitably going to be on the backs of the less fortunate, because somebody has to be the, I don't know, kid, if you will, in a broom closet who the whole society is riding on.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. So
or we'll walk away.
Yeah, or we walk away. All right. So that is my thanks for coming to my TED Talk about State Farm and the LA fires. I am not the most informed person, but that is how I understand what's going on. When people look for a scapegoat, it's not going to be State Farm. It's a lot of contributing factors. And my end question there is, who is to blame here? I don't have an answer for that, because there's a lot of contributing factors.
Well, it's the same thing with, like, and this isn't how this fire started, but other fires in California have started with PG&E's power lines and the wind causing the power lines to go down and then starting fires, and that's why the power had to be turned off when the wind gets bad. I mean, that's how it was when I was there, and I don't know if it's still like that. And there were a lot of people to blame, like PG&E, but also the state of California not paying for updating the system so where it could withstand that kind of wind. But it's multifactorial. Like, you have to pay for these things, and it's like, where do you put your resources? And so it's just super complicated. But if you don't manage it correctly, you end up in these situations. And that's apolitical. That happens everywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We don't have a
Texas
solution.
has plenty of problems with their power grid and how that works. So
Right. Yeah.
It's bad all over. Hey Ben, tell us something good.
You know, I wish I could. But
Oh,
we're gonna go through a little bit of bad before we get there.
Just remember, it gets worse before it gets worse.
I have a pin that says that, and I should wear it more.
Yeah.
So lately, I've been reminded of the 5 remembrances by the Buddha, and I'd like to walk you through a few of them. And
I remember
know
9/11. Is that one of them?
no, but well,
Never forget.
Never forget.
I am of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There's no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions, here's where the good news comes, my actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. This is a translation of the Buddha's words from Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's something that the Buddha all those years ago said, remember this at night before you go to sleep, and remember in the morning as you wake up. And what, I mean, you know, this seems apropos to just about anything we have to talk about. Like I've got this cold right now that's just not going away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm of the nature to have ill health. Ill health is something that is going to happen to us. We're all just colonies of bacteria walking in concert within larger colonies that are our families, within larger colonies that are our cities, within larger colonies that's the entire Earth. We're just a bunch of bacteria, y'all.
Oh yeah. We just
Right?
invented things like telephones and toilets.
The death of the self is going to happen, but at that point the bacteria live on and they
and make giant kaiju that fight in the forest. Wait a minute.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky, yeah.
There's no way to escape becoming a giant kaiju that goes into the forest.
Wow.
But yeah,
as
man,
the Buddha said. That's the 6th remembrance.
I guess it's that idea that like over the course of the last several months for many people and over the course of our entire lives for everybody, we have these things that are real, which we're going to get old, we're going to get sick of occasionally or forever until the end of it, and then eventually we're going to die. Those are things that we can't escape from. They're the reality of it. And as soon as we can like
Come
recognize
to
it,
terms,
and accept it and not constantly be fighting against it, then we can come to the real thing, which is, what is it that we actually do have? We have our actions and our reactions to the systems that we're in and what we're presented with. And there's a lot of freedom there. And so I'd like, one of the things I've done the last couple of days, so like, do you print it out and have it next to your bed, when you're, do you have it on your mirror? Like as you're brushing your teeth in the morning and evening? Remember, everybody, please do brush your teeth. But
what is this podcast anymore?
What is this podcast? It's it's hi, I'm the internet's dad.
Hi, brush your teeth and remember the Buddha. Go to bed.
But the idea is that like you can condition the next moment to be one that is more favorable to you than the one that you're currently in. And so, there you go.
There's a freedom in no longer worrying about getting old, getting sick, and dying. Like knowing that those are just going to happen. Those are truths, universal truths for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Stop worrying about it. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, don't do something to make it worse. Like that'd be dumb. But like, it's gonna happen. So don't sit there every day going like, oh man, I'm getting older. What am I gonna do now? I'm getting older. It's like we're all getting older. Like,
You're not alone.
You're not
Number
alone.
one.
And that's also a very stoic philosophy.
Yeah.
Accepting that you can't change things, so you shouldn't worry about them.
Exactly.
Just prepare for them.
Sure.
But don't worry about them, because if you worry about something that may or may not happen, you're just taking away what you could be doing currently.
Right. To worry is to suffer twice.
Exactly.
So in this time
easier
where
said than done.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's no harder or easier to come to these acceptances in the future than it is right now.
What was it? The best time to start was yesterday.
The second best time is right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah. And honestly, there is nobody that's going to reap the benefits of these perspectives than, more than you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Me,
yeah.
particularly?
Yeah.
If you, Devon is the only one that's going to really reap the benefit of me coming to grips with my death.
Devon, you're going to start feeling a whole lot better as the rest of the world starts to come to grips. It's all for you, sir.
Man, I'm glad we've all finally figured that one out, because it's taken like 40 some years to do
I'm
this.
telling everybody the world revolves around me. Nobody was listening.
8 billion in one name of God. It's Devon. It's just Devon.
All right. Well, that's more on this as it develops.
Well, if anything else develops from Buddha, like how long ago was he around?
Yeah, a hot minute.
Century
he's been around.
BCE, 6th century BCE.
Something like that. It was a while ago. Yeah. All right, we are going to take ourselves a little break, and when we come back, it's book club time. We are going to be talking about The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas.
I'm going to say Omalace, because I've got reasons. Omalace.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's fine.
The audio version I listened to said Omelas. I think other things I heard said Omelas, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So whatever utopia you imagine, so whatever you want to call it, I guess.
I mean, that's the whole. All right. Okay. We got to take a break first, then we'll talk about it. Jeez, getting ahead of ourselves here. God.
We're just
Devon.
so excited to be here.
So excited. Okay, we're taking ourselves a little break. We will be right back.
Do you like science? Do you like factions? Well, thank you for listening to the Science Faction podcast. If you would like to donate to our podcast so we can keep making more of these wonderful shows, please go to patreon.com/sciencefactionpodcast.
And we're back.
Heyo.
Hey.
And a big thank you to our patrons, Renee and Josh. Y'all keep the hope alive, and we love you for it. If you're interested in getting to be part of join our Discord for free by becoming a free level patron at patreon.com/sciencefactionpodcast. But if you do throw a couple of bucks at us, you get access to our non-edited early release episodes where we talk about a lot of different things, including this episode we talked about DERF and stoicism and the art of leading a meaningless existence. What does God need with a belly button?
Whatever he wants. He's got to keep God's lint in there. I don't know.
So next week for book club, Stephen, you chose a great one. I think sounds pretty good. What are we going to be reading next?
Next week we are reading "We Can Remember It for You Wholesale," the 1966 short story by Philip K. Dick. It's about 19 pages long. We have a link to a PDF version of it in our show notes. And I also put a little note here. No, Devin, you can't just watch Total Recall.
What if I watch the Total Recall remake?
That's even worse.
That'll definitely work. Yeah, sure. Let's see how that prepares you for this conversation.
Well, Colin Farrell. Oh no. Anyways, yeah. So that'll be next week. We'll talk about that. But this week, take it away, Ben.
This week, it is The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula K. Le Guin from The Wind's 12 Quarters. And this one was super fascinating and seemed, as many of these do, pretty timely.
I mean, good sci-fi is always timely, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. So this story, I guess, I don't know, Devin, do you want to go over the kind of a short reminder of what this story is about?
Sure. It's almost more of a thought experiment because there's not really like a plot to it. Omelas is a city that is pretty much a utopia. And the narrator even kind of lets you decide, like, whatever you think a utopia is, we can kind of incorporate that into this idea. And like they even talk about like, drugs might not be great for utopia, but they make some people feel better. So sure, there's drugs here. And so it's basically just trying to say like, here's a utopia.
Everyone's happy.
But
they're everyone's going to a party. It's a great time. It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah. These people are mature, intelligent, passionate adults whose lives are not horrible. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But of course there's a catch. And the catch in this case is there's a child being held in what's essentially a broom closet. It's a very limited space. They describe the child as being what word do they use? Basically,
an imbecile.
Imbecile, is that what? Yeah, and they say it's not clear if were born like that or if they've just been made that way by living in these horrific conditions. And they're pretty much in this closet forever. They get food and water, and people can come and look at this child, but they when they open the door, they kind of kick the child back in to make sure they don't get out. And that everybody here knows that if this child was to be let out of this horrible confinement, that would destroy the utopian nature of Omelas, that everything would basically fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
they know it.
They know it.
So then there's a choice.
It says that when between the ages of 8 and 12, when a child is prepared, that's when they show them this prisoner child.
Yeah.
And at that point forward, yeah, there's a choice.
And the responses for most people, everyone mostly seems to walk away horrified by it. So they have, what innate sense of morality and ethics that you would expect people to have. This isn't a world where they're just like, yeah, whatever, we're indifferent to this type of suffering. People actually know, okay, yeah, this is obviously wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few different responses. One seems to be like a rationalization of it. Like after a while, they're like, well, if we let the kid out, he wouldn't, it's too late. He wouldn't know he wouldn't be able to function in society properly. Mm-hmm. So it's not that big of a deal. So kind of a rationalization to make themselves feel better. And there's the ones, as the title says, who walk away from Omelas, who just walk into the forest or desert or walk away from this utopia. And it doesn't say what happens necessarily. It does say they go to a place that even the narrator wouldn't be able to describe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It doesn't say whether that's necessarily a bad thing, but I guess, are you supposed to assume it's like a hellish place?
It's just not the utopia.
It's just not utopia.
It's not that
life
utopia.
as we know it.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of different things. It could, but it's the terror of not knowing is what keeps most people that don't walk away.
Yeah.
There.
Ooh.
So you're left with the decision. I mean, you would probably naturally reading this put yourself in the place of the citizens of Omelas and think, well, would I be willing to be a party to this horrific thing going on for the return of living in a utopia?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you can take it the step further of saying, well, what do I now in real life, in my reality, what injustices do I let stand in order to be able to live the way I live now? Which, I mean, you could almost say that we, be living in our privileged position in the country we live in, Western society.
White
There's probably
cisgendered males.
All
Well,
landowners.
Yes, that's true for sure.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not even just cisgendered males, but there's other, people living in our society who benefit quite a bit. Who, I mean, I would say just take Americans in general, or even Western society in general, and globally, what type of horrific things do we put the third world through to be able to benefit from the resources gathered there?
Yeah.
And the type of governments they have to live in. Yes, you can go more minutely into our society and cut it up there and look at that too. That's valid. But I was thinking more in general of what we get to take advantage of. China puts their citizenry and their people through hell to provide us with cheap goods.
Yeah.
And those goods are used by not just cisgender males, but most people in our society.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point of this story is to I think, is to take a step back and take a look at your life and go like, oh, what am I ignoring? And is it worth it for me to ignore that?
And the answer is probably yes, because you haven't walked away from your society, have you? You haven't turned your computer off, gotten rid of your TV, started living off the land. Anything you do, especially if you're anti-capitalism. I mean, everything we do is done to support capitalism, and that is because of capitalism.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pros and cons to capitalism. Lots of cons. I mean, creating
we're seeing that
working
now.
class or even an underclass that's not treated fairly. But yet you keep doing it. I mean, till the day you, like I said, get rid of all your modern conveniences.
Yeah.
You're benefiting off of someone's suffering.
I mean, is that a self-imposed trap? Like, how do you walk away from Omelas, right? Like, we feel, I would say that the average person in our current society would be like, I can't. There is no way for me to walk away. But there is. If you have to make enough sacrifices, there is always a way. But you feel like you can't because of all that you'd have to give up.
Here's an interesting quote here. It's a neat little answer to that. The trouble is that we have a bad habit, encouraged by scholars and philosophers, as considering happiness as something rather stupid. Only pain is intellectual. Only evil is interesting. This is the sin of the artist, a refusal to admit that evil is dull and pain is boring. And so that idea is that like when we come as a Western society, I know that like whenever I think of the good things I have in my life, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, Like, yes, there are, not just the things that are real problems based on having the nice things that I have, which Devon has talked about in terms of third world, our responsibility to third world countries that are supporting us. But on top of that, there's also a almost pathological need to not accept what we have without thinking that something is wrong. We're constantly looking for something wrong. And so in this case, there is something wrong. There's there's a little child that's in this corner. There is a minority being oppressed for the benefit of the majority. And for what reason? There is no like literal reason here. Now, one of the reasons why I called Omelas Omelase is because if you reverse the name Omelas, you get Salem O.
Okay.
Right? The witch hunts, the like the the minority, the need to other a minority and make them evil and make them make them suffer.
Hmm.
I wonder
right?
if the author was specifically making a reference to that, because I know from what I saw, and maybe this person was incorrect when they mentioned it, that the name does come from Salem, but it comes from Salem, Oregon, which is
Oh,
what
interesting.
where the O comes from.
Oh.
So I don't, and maybe that's just a happy coincidence, and maybe the author was like, oh, and there's the reference to the historical Salem with the witch trials.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, at least again, if this person on YouTube is correct, that is a reference to Salem, Oregon, which is not where the witch trials happen. For anyone who doesn't know that.
Well, what's up with Salem,
Which
Oregon?
I think as a kid, since I traveled to Oregon so much, I didn't know that for a while. Because I was like, oh, Salem, that's where the witch trials happen. Oh, we're in a place called Salem. This must be where the witch trials happened.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Well, okay, hold on. Salem. The sources for the name Salem include 1855. Okay, suggested adopting an angelicized version of the biblical Hebrew word shalom, meaning peace. President of the town's trustees wanted a biblical name, suggested these the last 5 letters of Jerusalem, or the town be named after Salem, Massachusetts. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff.
According to Wikipedia, Le Guin stated that the city's name is pronounced Omelas. Le Guin hit upon the name of the town on seeing a road sign for Salem, Oregon in a car mirror.
Oh, so there is no greater meaning behind it. Cool.
People ask me, where do you get your ideas from, Miss Le Guin? From forgetting Dostoevsky and reading road signs backwards, naturally. Where else?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so the actual like philosophical context would be utilitarianism. Utilitarianism.
Okay.
Which is the idea of, as long as you have a greater good, then something is moral. Like if the positive outweighs the negative. And which is kind of an easy way of defining ethics or morality, but it quickly comes under issues when you say something like this situation where it's like, okay, well then that means that slavery is justified because let's say we have only a few slaves, but it makes life easier for everyone else, then that under utilitarianism is justified. Or an example that's brought up a lot is if you you have say 5 people who need organ transplants, and you take a healthy person who's fine, who otherwise would live a long, happy life, you, against their will, force them to, well, against their will, you harvest their organs.
Aha.
And it's like, well, you had the greater good was achieved. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few or the one. But is that really ethical? Because you just completely, without consent, murdered somebody and stole their organs. So obviously that's not a great. If your system of ethics allows for that and says that overall that entire thing was moral, most of us would say, well, no, that's not moral. Something's wrong.
I was gonna make a joke that if Spock read this story, he'd be like, "This is fine. This is there's nothing wrong with this. The needs, many, few, it's fine."
And that's what's interesting. Like, I don't think they go into it in a whole lot of detail in Star Trek, but when you talk about having a society based purely on logic, not everything comes down to logic.
Right.
Ethics, for example, as we're talking about, cannot necessarily be completely logically discerned, because in almost any ethical framework you devise, you can think of a situation that would be within that framework, but yet most people would say, oh no, that's terrible, like we can't allow for that. And then it's like, well, then you're whatever ethical framework you've come up with does not account for 100% of the situations. And you have to ask, well, what framework am I applying that makes me say this is wrong, but yet I can't, whenever I try to define that framework, it has flaws, which is why there's a whole field of study called ethics, because it's not that easy. And some people have just concluded it just comes down to feeling. Like, really, ethics is just feelings. It's just ask somebody, do you think that's right or wrong? You think it's right? You think it's wrong? It makes you feel good or it makes you feel bad? Well, I guess that's all we can really say about ethics, because that's the only universal, apparently.
You know, I have asked my children before when asking them to do something and they hem and haw about it, say, you know, what do you think the right thing to do is? And then I get a big sigh, and then they do the thing. Because that's really what it comes down to, is like, that I should be doing that. That is, even though I don't want to, I will feel good about it afterwards because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, this was a good story, you guys. The fact that it generated this kind of conversation after it, Ursula K. Le Guin, is amazing. And calling this a thought experiment, you hit the nail right on the hammer. whatever the thing is.
Hit the monkey with the banana.
You swung the monkey through the Shia LaBeouf.
Well, and I like how it doesn't have, because in this situation you could bring up in different sci-fi and Star Trek, it comes up. There's always, whenever there's a utopia in any sci-fi, there's some dark underbelly supporting it.
Yeah, there has to be.
And I like how this distills it down to, we're not even going to say there's a logical connection between this horrible thing that's happening and why that causes utopia. We're just going to say that is the fact. That we know that's a given, which is why it makes it a thought experiment, because we don't even have to tell a story of, well, we need these people, an underclass, to be slaves to serve the upper class and make their lives tolerable. Like, no, we're just going to say it's a given. Yeah. This horrific thing has to happen for this other thing to happen.
Yeah, and you get to put your own spin on it in your head of like, oh wow, this the way this child is kept, this is a horrific thing. What other horrific things do I not pay attention to in my life? And what is that giving me in return? Yeah, it allows, like, it's a thought, like you read this and immediately your mind starts reeling like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, just there. Yeah. Yep.
I'm keeping kids in my basement, and that's not even causing a utopia.
Treat them worse, Devon. Treat them worse.
Oh my gosh. That was a classic Devon right there.
That was Devon 101. That was a good one.
Oh my gosh. How could you? Oh my gosh.
Well, as Spock said. Okay. That was book club for this week. Please do yourself a favor and go read it if you haven't. You will get something out of this one. I guarantee it. Next week, of course, Philip K. Dick. We can remember it for you wholesale, not Total Recall. Give it a read. I think I've read this one before. Because I really like Total Recall. So I'm pretty sure I've read this one before. But that'll be exciting. That's for next week. I think we've done it, guys. We succeeded. It's time for us to walk away. So,
all right.
Devon, do you have any final thoughts?
I do not.
All right. Ben, do you have any last words?
What do you get when you cross a polar bear with a seal? A polar bear.
Good night, everybody.
This has been the Science Faction Podcast. Tweet to the host at SciFact Podcast. Email them at sciencefactionpodcast@gmail.com and visit sciencefactionpodcast.com for more episodes.